Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by onlinegreatbooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas. This is the Online Great Books podcast. Before we get started with this show with Karl, I need you guys to go to iTunes and subscribe and give us a rating. Give us the rating you think we deserve, which is, of course, 5 stars. And go to onlinegreatbooks.com and you can sign up there for our VIP waiting list. If you're listening to this in the future and enrollment's not open, you can join the VIP waiting list. And then when it does open, the day before, we'll give you a discount code, so you'll get 25% off your first 3 months. And you can also go there, likely, depending on when you are into the future, and sign up for one of our $9 intro seminars. So right now we're getting ready to run one on Plato's The Meno. So for $9, we send you the Meno, and you get to go to one of our 2-hour Socratic seminars and discuss that book, and you join our Slack community of readers who are discussing that book 24 hours a day and see what we're like. You can take it for a test drive. But today we're going to talk to Karl.
Hi.
Are you our chief seminar host? I don't know what you are.
I'm the first one.
You're the first one. You're important to me.
I'm the one who wrote some of our guidelines. I remember going to Scott and I do some work on another thing called Starting Strength Online Coaching, and got on the Slack channel for that. And this guy Scott Hambrick is pinging me. I'm so glad to meet you. I'm so glad. Who the heck is Scott Hambrick? And
Hillbilly in Catoosa, Oklahoma.
But he's asking questions about learning Latin and stuff. I was like, this is an interesting guy. This is someone to know. And so we've. I want to talk about why we're doing this thing at all. I don't want to talk about any particular books except as they come up, but why we're doing this very, very strange thing.
Well, the thing we are doing is we're helping people read the great books of the Western world and then discuss them like Mortar Adler wanted them discussed, right, in a Socratic seminar hosted by somebody that knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time that guy's you, but first tell people about you, right?
There's a lot of things to talk about there. So
yeah, there is. Don't tell all your secrets.
I've had a misspent youth. I wanted to be a musician. My mom said, go get a real job. So I got an engineering degree, not so much because I liked it, but because it was what my family did. Then I got another engineering degree because it's what my family did. Because if you don't have at least a master's in my family, you sit at the kids' table at Thanksgiving. Both my brothers are advanced degree engineers, and my dad and my grandfather were engineers. I didn't like it very much. I didn't know what to do. I screwed around pretty much all of the 90s, and then ended up going to Marquette for philosophy, which I really liked. Got a PhD in philosophy from Marquette, and have been teaching since the late 90s, since about 1998, in academia. I have since given that up to concentrate on some other things. I have a theology degree that I got mostly because I was going to read the books anyway, and I found a thing where I could do it and get a degree from the Antiochian House of Studies, so thanks to them.
Antioch, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a thing that so I'm not Orthodox. It's a long story, Eastern Catholic. But the Antiochian Orthodox Church does a thing where they, you can do like distance learning, and then you come for a week.
And this is Antioch College.
No, this is the Antiochian Orthodox Church. This is like Greek Orthodox only from Syria. And they were very kind, and it's a good program, so I was happy to do that. So I've also gotten a theology degree, which none of these things make me money, but they're all...
No, they do not. We're trying, darn it.
Right. So I've screwed around a lot with books, so they're important to me, and I want more people to do it. But that's a good point. They're not remunerative. Is that the right word? They don't pay money?
Right.
Right. So what I wanted to talk about, I'm glad to be on the podcast, is why we want to do this sort of thing. Why should people sign up with us, read a hard book, a fun book, a hard book, and talk about it?
Yeah. And you said sign up with us. I certainly want them to, but you don't have to, right?
No.
These books are available at used bookstores for $1 a piece.
They're cheap.
They're cheap. You can get these out of copyright editions. A lot of them are very, very good electronically for nothing. Go to archive.org and get the Jowett translations of Plato, which aren't too shabby.
They aren't too shabby. They make Socrates and all his friends sound like Victorian gentlemen.
Yeah.
Cheerios, Socrates.
And yeah, so you can get this stuff for free. You can find some good reading lists out there, like the Great Books of the Western World reading list or the St. John's College reading list, and start a group in your home. And that's better actually than what we do. Meeting in person with people and doing this together face to face is better.
Yeah,
but gosh, that's hard to do.
But why? Well, it is hard to do. It's like getting a Dungeons and Dragons group together.
Gosh, that's our next business.
Yeah. So I usually think that there's two. Okay. So you're a human being, right? So, and I would do this with students in the college. I would say, why are you here? I do it on the first day. Why are you here? And then I just sit down and wait for them to answer, because college students don't like to answer questions.
Right.
And I'd just be silent. And if you're silent, I learned this from Andy Baker, if you're just quiet, whoever talks first loses. Right, so I would win if they talk first. And they would say, I'm here because it's on my schedule. Okay.
I appreciate your honesty.
Why do you follow? Some of them would lie and say, I'm here because I want knowledge. I'm here because I want the truth. No, why are you really here? They're here because they want to satisfy their schedule. And then I can follow up. Well, why do you satisfy what's on your schedule? Well, because I need to get a degree. Why do you want a degree? So I can get a job. Why do you want a job? So you can get money. Why do you want money? So I can buy stuff. What kind of stuff? We'd go down this rabbit hole for a while. And eventually it ends up with to be happy.
Oh, the good life.
Yeah, so that's a real important thing. So happiness, we screwed up, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. And if you think I'm wrong, come join us and tell me I'm wrong.
He loves a fight.
I do, but I'm polite about it. And
that's right.
I know it's not personal. Happiness, we think happiness is an emotion, and I don't think it is. I think happiness is an action. So I read Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle a bunch of times, and was actually reading Thomas Aquinas writing about that, and he says, real clearly, Thomas says, happiness is an activity. Lights go off. Really? Wow, that changes everything.
It certainly does. It's not something that happens to you.
It's something you do.
Not something that happens to you.
Yeah, and it's right there in Aristotle. I didn't notice it because I'm not very smart. But happiness is activity in accord with reason. So says Aristotle. But good activity. So we got some. Well, why would you want to do that? So for me, that's the number one reason. It's fun. It's the best activity. You know, it's the highest activities.
The conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super fun. And I would suggest for those who are listening to us, if you think back in your own life at your best moments, I bet a lot of them are talking.
Yeah, you know, when you meet your wife, she's not your wife yet.
Right.
So you meet Melissa. Right, usually. Right. So you meet and then you get to know them. Mm-hmm. Right? You get to like explore their brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's euphoric.
Yeah.
But you can do it one time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get little glimpses of it now and then, and they get farther and farther apart when you're together for a very, very long time. But when you have these discussions, you get to pry into somebody's brain a little bit. It's really interesting. It's a great deal of fun.
Mm-hmm. And it can be we were talking about this earlier. It can be helpful to you. Let's say we come in and we do one of these books, and I have my own opinion on the book, and you think I'm wrong. I perk up. I'm excited when people disagree with me and say, Carl, you're full of, can we say bad words on this?
Certainly.
Full of shit, Carl. For me, that's exciting. I perk up. Yeah. I sit up straight. Wow. All right. Let's talk about that. Convince me. because it's a different view.
Yeah, I said earlier that you love a fight. And we don't fight, but we disagree.
Yeah, but the disagreement is an occasion to get more of that goodness that we like about doing this. I can give you there's some practical things. For me, the number one is it's fun. You got to do this stuff. It's fun. You got to, it's like, if you're going to drink, you drink the best stuff. If you're going to look at art, you look at the best stuff. If you're going to listen to music, you listen to the best stuff.
I want to stop it right now.
Uh-huh.
Carl hipped me to this band this weekend. It's the best funk band that you've heard since James Brown died. Vulfpeck, Vulfpeck. If you like funk, you got to go get a little bit of those guys.
You got to listen to Vulfpeck. They are the band you didn't know you were waiting for.
Super tight.
Yeah. If you don't like them, probably don't sign up with us.
You're right. A double dog dare you to sit still while you listen to them.
Yeah, so we don't want the bad stuff. Or if you're satisfied with the bad stuff, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be.
So we have to tie this back.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying we do things in search of happiness,
mm-hmm.
and that one of the things that brings you the most happiness are these good conversations.
Right.
And so we read these books in order to participate in these conversations. Is that where you're going?
Yes. Yeah, it is a very high intellectual activity that you can do. I have two other reasons why you can do it, but for me, the fun of it is the best one. I mean, this is what you have a mind for. So there's a quote from Socrates that everyone does, but they leave off the end of it. And the quote is, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But then he adds, "For a man, for a human, the unexamined life is perfectly worth living for a pig." As far as we know, pigs don't have culture.
My cats just lay there.
Right. They're as happy as cats can be. They don't need conversation. A human that doesn't do this, I don't think you're as happy as you can be. For you got to talk about stuff. You need to seek the best stuff. You need to convince me why your stuff is better than my stuff. And sure, great, let's do it. Let's learn about each other. I remember, I'm going to talk about another podcast. I remember listening to Brett McKay on Art of Manliness, and I forget who he had on. You guys can look it up. Talking about the fall of the Roman Republic.
I'll look that up while you talk.
And I was listening to it, and I thought, this is what we should be doing. You know, this is the sort of thing you should be doing after your barbecue while your kids are playing. You know, and you say, boy, I wonder if they hadn't murdered Caesar, what would have happened?
Right. Yeah, but he's done a bunch of shows about this. Episode 346 on the Art of Manliness podcast is The Fall of the Roman Republic. With Mike Duncan, who wrote The Storm Before the Storm.
I think that's it.
And he wrote another one. Let me see. Or did it record another one? Episode 254, The Fall of Rome. Brett, by the way, has a liberal arts degree from the University of Oklahoma. And he's a member of my home group. So we do this stuff. We read these books together in person.
Yeah, this is what people ought to do. And ought is a strong word. You know, it's not a moral failing if you don't, but it's like you're leaving your tools in the shed. You're not using them. And there's some fun that you're leaving in the shed. There's some fun that you could be having in your life that we would like to help you have.
Yeah, the conversation takes place. So we do a seminar where you or Jim or one of our other people lead people in discussion. We don't really lead the discussion. That's not fair. They're a part of Socrates. They're a midwife. They're there to help the ideas come out.
Yeah.
And they question and drill and try to make everybody the best person they can be in that discussion.
Yeah.
So we do that. So there's a conversation there, but there's also a conversation when you actually read the thing. I swear Socrates is my uncle.
So when I do
you know
Socrates,
what I mean?
I do. So
the
Socrates
guy's talking
for me,
right to me.
He is, and I cast him in my mind. He's Peter Falk, Columbo. Just one more. I can't do a Columbo imitation, but you just look him up, Columbo. And another question. One more question. You know, and it's always the question that you don't know how to answer, and it hits you, and Yeah, it's great fun. Lead is a strong word. I really want to fight against the idea of us being gurus or philosopher kings from on high, that you come and you sit and you listen. That's the wrong way to do it. All we are is people who maybe have read these books a few more times than you have.
You're right.
And the best, when I was teaching in universities, the best classes I had, the best classes I had were not the 19-year-old kids in college, although they could be okay, they could be good, but it was the nurses. I would have these 5-week compressed classes with a bunch of nurses who are typically, 30 or 40 years old, maybe a little older, but they come in and for one, they read the books, which is an improvement, but they work in a hospital. They see death all the time.
Right.
They're serious people. And they let these, I mostly did ancient Greek stuff with them, but they let this stuff hit them and they tell you things that you never saw. These books are written for you. Whoever you are out there, they're written for you. We have a channel on our Slack. We just opened up a channel. We want to get our people to meet each other in real life, or at least to know each other in real life. And we've got a bunch of software programmers, which is great, but we've got a machinist, we've got an auto body repair guy, we've got some people that you wouldn't necessarily think would be the people to get great books, but everybody needs to do this. If you have lived a life, if you've done this, if you work with your hands, God bless you, you're probably the sort of person that needs to read these books. Yeah. And you're going to tell us what they mean in ways that I don't understand, because I don't work with my hands that much. Yeah,
you've been in academia for a long time. And you said,
I'm an intellectual veal.
And you told me, you do things.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So I'm an intellectual. I'm sorry. I wish I wasn't sometimes. I want to sit and think. And I've come in contact with a bunch of people who just, we should start a business. And then a week later, they've started a business. And I would sit and think about it for years and say, maybe I ought to start it, maybe I ought to do it. And I'd never do it. But these books are too good to restrict to academia, where people are just going to, they probably won't even read them now, but they're just going to not do anything. These are books for people who've lived a life.
They're so good.
Yeah.
They are so good.
They are.
Yeah. So we do it for the conversations.
Yeah.
And the conversation is really about relationships, right? It's about actually interacting with, having some sort of a relationship with another person. And I think that you have the relationships with the people that in your discussion,
and with Plato.
And with the author.
Or Homer.
Or
Aristotle. Or Edmund Burke. You've been having a good time. Edmund Burke's your buddy now.
I think so.
Yeah.
He's convinced me. That's the way I am. I'm so stupid. Like, everything I read, I totally agree with it. And then I read the next book, and I'm like, I'm a monarchist. And I read Marx. I'm like, I'm a communist. And then I read von Mises, and I'm like, libertarian. Yeah. I'm so malleable.
It's all right.
So you read them for that reason, right? You said you had two others.
I have two others. Okay, so I'm going to borrow from Dorothy Sayers, and then from. Yeah, I'll just give them. So Dorothy Sayers wrote one of the founding books of, at least of homeschooling. And I'm going to probably blank on the title. It's The Lost Tools of Learning.
That's exactly it.
I got it. All right, one go. And she's a fantastic writer. Her mysteries are wonderful. She's got a great translation of
If you
Dante.
join our VIP waiting list, I send you a copy of that.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah, you should sign up. And she worked in advertising. Guinness, it's good for you. I think that's her line.
Yep.
Also, it pays to, what is it? It pays to advertise. That's another one of her lines. But she wrote this little pamphlet on why we need to have the liberal arts, and she sketches them out. And the way she puts it is, they're probably just one reason in two parts. But she says, look, you are bombarded by words all the time. And she was in advertising, and she knows that words are weapons. Words are tools for manipulation. And we don't just have words now. We have images and sound. And everybody's got their nose in a phone all day long. which means you are being manipulated all day long by very smart people and very cool computer algorithms that will send you advertisements for things you didn't even know you were looking for.
I heard a podcast the other day. It was on, it was a Sam Harris podcast. He had a software engineer on there that was talking about ethics and software engineering. And he said, on your iPhone, when you're looking at your email screen, or actually almost any screen on the iPhone, and you need to refresh the screen, you take your thumb and you swipe down, and then it makes a little waiting motion, it makes a little noise, and then it reloads. He said they can reload that instantly, but they found that triggers some sort of reward system in your brain like a slot machine does, and it increases engagement with the device. We're being screwed with.
We are, and so I think you ought to be able to defend yourself. So Dorothy Sayers says, a way to defend yourself is to know the liberal arts, the traditional liberal arts, the trivium, which is grammar, how to talk, logic, how to argue, rhetoric, how to speak beautifully. I think rhetoric's really important to do. And we don't treat those as an academic subject, but you're going to get them from reading all this stuff because you need to know how people are manipulating you. So we read, just finishing up the Odyssey with a few groups. What is Homer doing to you? It's a poem. The poem is all about hitting you in, as the kids say, hitting you in the feels.
Right.
You need to know how they do that to be able to defend yourself against it, or to give into it and say, this is a really good poem. I'm going to let it take me, I'm going to open myself to this poem and let it just take me over. But you need to know this stuff. Otherwise, you are a sucker. I mean, you are
being blown about.
Easy pickings that you think you're thinking for yourself, but you're not.
I say that reading these books and arguing with them, having the great conversation with them, installs a BS detector.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not a straight up logic course or a straight up rhetoric. It's not a course at all. It's let's get together and fight with each other. And so our logo, what's our logo?
Our logo, go to the website at onlinegreatbooks.com and see it. It's a crest, right? It's a shield, and on the right side of the thing, the right brain, it's a hemisphere of the brain, highly stylized, of course. The top left corner has a little page of text with a bookmark on it, and the bottom left corner is an anvil.
Right. So the anvil, the book is the anvil upon which you beat yourself into shape.
Yeah, you told me that the books are the anvil that we beat ourselves on to make ourselves tools better suited for living.
Yeah.
I said,
that's really nice. I
know.
I said that.
I'm going to put that on this
I think
website.
I must have stole that. That's too good for me. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. And it might be hard, might be frustrating, but it's so good. And you become immune or more immune to the influences around you. You're stronger. So the second reason is related to that. So we call them the liberal arts. I just want to do a little etymology, at least etymology as I understand it. So you'd have mechanical arts or servile arts, which are the arts that are for the sake of your job. If you're a plumber, you learn how to be a pipe fitter. You learn how to do whatever it is plumbers do, which I would know better if I were more of a doer and less of a reader. But you learn how to do that stuff. Those are mechanical arts. The liberal arts, liberal means free. Mm-hmm. Okay? So the liberal arts are the arts that you need if you are a free man or a free woman in your city. And the reason you need them is because if it's a democracy or a republic or anything in which you have a share in the governance of your city, you need these. You need to have more than just your job. You need to be able to have grammar and understand what you read. You need to have logic and understand an argument. You need to have rhetoric to have a bullshit detector or be able to persuade other people of good and true and beautiful things in order to be useful in the governance of your state. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. It's almost tyrannical. Democracy, republicanism, whatever. We have to know a little bit about everything. Yeah. The bond election, like you're ultimately responsible for everything. Mm-hmm. And you're responsible for the governance of your fellow person. And it's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
Go down to Walmart and ask yourself if you'd like to be governed by those folks.
I don't know if they're reading good books, maybe.
Right. They're not incapable of it, you know?
Yeah, their instincts are probably good. But so I read somewhere that, and this is almost always the case, the taller candidate wins the presidential election.
Right.
Think about that. Nixon lost to Kennedy because
exactly
of how they looked on television.
Because he got a little sweaty.
Yeah, and he had some stubble, which I'm offended that the smooth-shaven won because I always have stubble. We haven't had a bald president.
Since Ike.
Yeah. Not in the TV age. We haven't had a bald president. There's a particular type that gets to be president because, well...
Because maybe the ideas don't matter that much.
The ideas don't matter. The perception matters. I would like the ideas to matter more. I would like us to be better voters. I'd like us to be able to look at one of these debates and say, that's bullshit. You're lying to me. I know that what you're saying is not true because I have a brain and I've sharpened it and hardened it.
Yeah, we talk about rhetoric all the time because people talk about the sound bite, you know, and they talk about the talking points. Mm-hmm. Right? Well, those are the tools of the rhetoric they use, mm-hmm. but people don't have a really formal framework to think about those arguments that are being made.
Yeah. Have you ever read the Lincoln-Douglas debates?
100 years ago.
100 years ago.
I was like 14 years old, probably.
And I'm going to screw this up, and somebody out there in podcast land is going to tell us the details. But those debates were, I think, 2.5 hours long. They happen. I'm from Illinois. They happen in Illinois, and we drive out to the towns, and you can go into the square where the debate happened. 2.5 hours. Lincoln would get an hour. Douglas would get 90 minutes, and then Lincoln would get a half an hour to respond. And imagine the argument that you could make. And these were big debates. You should read them. They're about a lot of things, but the slave question is a big one. It's interesting to find out why Lincoln opposed slavery and why Douglas didn't. I encourage you to read them. But can you imagine? I would love to have a debate like that.
Yeah, I mean, how much of a giant do you have to be to carry all that stuff in your head? You know, listen to an hour of Lincoln, frame a retort, make that answer on the part of Douglas, mm-hmm. and then take another hour or whatever to make your points. I mean,
yeah.
So, how skilled were they?
Let me ask you this question, Scott Hambrick. How did they get that way?
Well, they just had a few books. And they did a deep dive.
Right. They read them well. I don't know about Douglas. I know there's stories about Lincoln. Lincoln, I think his education, he had the Bible, he had Shakespeare, he had Euclid. He would apparently do Euclidean proofs on horseback, riding around. You do a few great books. If they're good enough and you work them hard, you can get yourself really smart. I mean, if you read line by line the Bible, you know, even if you don't take it religiously, that's fine. If you just understand how that text holds together, and then Shakespeare, I would probably just award you a college degree.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
St. Mortimer of Adler. Mortimer Adler, that's a huge influence, and we stole most of what we do from that guy. He said it's not how many books you get through, but how many get through to you. Yep.
So I think, the most important reason, the best reason for doing anything is because it's fun. It's what a human ought to do. I mean, what else are you going to do? Play around in the pig pen, roll around with the pigs, or, you know, get off your ass and do some higher level functioning. I think it's incredibly rewarding. We've got some good feedback from the people we have already signed up with us. They like it. It's great fun. It's great fun. Other reasons, you know, it makes you better able. You're immune to political garbage. If you want to vote in your school board election, you'll be smarter when you do it. I think you should. I sure hope you'll join us.
These books make us more aware of the context that we live in. Like every time I read one of these books that's on this list, I'm astounded by the things I come across that I already knew, and I hadn't read the book. Like, we're formed by these books, because we live in the West, whether we believe it or not. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. It's just true. You read these books, and you'll know so many of the arguments, so many of the stories, so many of the names, because we're steeped in it. And so it gives me it's given me a broader context that I didn't have before.
Yeah. This is the air you breathe. You just didn't know it.
Yeah.
The air you breathe is formed from these works.
I think the fact that our founding fathers took it upon themselves to create a new government is because Plato wrote the Republic. He said, he's like, until that, governments seem to have been emergent.
Yeah.
They were emergent orders. And Plato said, no, I think we could be thoughtful about this, and we can come up with, well, he was a utopian, and I've got problems with those people. But he said, government doesn't have to be emergent. In fact, the English government was, I think, an emergent order. Mm-hmm. And the founding fathers said, we could sit down and talk about this and figure out what we would like to do. And so I think the fact that we have an American Constitution is because Plato wrote the Republic. I mean, I'm skipping a few points there and drawing a straight line, but I think ultimately you've got Leviathan, and you've got Locke, and you got Hume, and you got
nobody ever did it. Maybe on the small scale, maybe in some like Italian republic they did it.
I'm sure there was some Puritan commune
we did
or
it,
something.
and we did it, reasonably well.
I don't know about that. We'll have to wait another 500 years.
The facts of the American government are more from the Roman Constitution than from the Republic, but a bunch of guys sitting around and thinking intellectually what would work. If we didn't have Plato, we wouldn't do that. The government's just whoever was the last conqueror,
right,
and their family. That's what a European nobility is. It's the last conquerors.
Yeah, so something just as basic as that is informed and made possible, I think, by Plato writing a book 2,000 years prior to that. And time and time again, I read these things and think, that's where that came from.
Yeah,
and it's so much fun.
It is fun. It's so much fun. That's why you should do it. It's fun. It really is.
That's been 40 minutes of us talking about this, but that's why we do it. I met you and found out that you cared about this stuff and knew something about it, and I certainly cared about this stuff and want more people to do it. And I'm like, man, we've got to find a way to get more of these books into people's houses.
Mm-hmm. So interesting, and we have more people that have gone through our program so far than, this is not a contest, but than the University of Chicago has, right?
Well, in the same period. So each one of our enrollment periods has been longer than their fall. That's been bigger than their fall enrollments.
Yeah, in their what do they call that?
The basic program at the University of Chicago.
That's their Great Books program. So I don't think we're competing, but we're happy.
No, I want more people to go to that one. I want more people to go to ours. That's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. One of the things I love about Karl, he said, look, I want to send the complete works of Plato to everybody. We're not, our list, we're trying really hard with our reading list to make sure that everybody gets what they need to. But we also want to make sure that they move through this canon fast enough that it doesn't grind them to dust and they don't lose interest. And I think everybody should read every single word of Plato that we know of.
Yes,
but we actually don't. There are a few, we don't read the Ion, there are a few pieces that we don't. We don't read the seventh letter. It's kind of, nobody's real sure about that darn thing. And but Karl said, I think it's important that all these people have a nice copy of Plato's collected works. And so we drop some money on that month. They get a $54 copy for $59 a month.
Yeah.
They get a $54 copy of Plato's collected works, but we want them to have it. We're like the Gideons.
Right.
We're trying to put a copy of Plato in every home.
So I'm visiting, Scott's been very hospitable. I'm visiting his house and I'm looking around his house, looking at all his books. So if you want to snoop in somebody's house and know them, what's traditional is to look in the medicine cabinet.
Right.
Don't do that. Nobody cares. Look at their bookshelves. Do they have bookshelves? If they don't, you know something. And then if they do, what do they have on it? Well, in your house, if you join us, you're going to have the complete works of Plato, which means everybody, it's going to be right next to your Homer, right? And what's on the list after that? You're going to have like Greek tragedies.
You get Homer, you get 2 volumes of Aeschylus, you get a volume of Euripides. Then the next book you get is Plato's collected works, and then they get Sophocles, and then they go back to Plato, and then we get Aristophanes, and they go back to Plato, and then we get Plutarch, and then they go back to Plato.
Oh, Plutarch's great fun too. So people are going to come in your house, and they're going to look at your bookshelves, and they're going to think, you are the most amazing. You're the most interesting man in the world, or the most interesting woman in the world, right? You don't always drink beer, but when you do, you drink it while you're reading Plato.
Yeah. Go to onlinegreatbooks.com and see what we're doing. Go sign up for the VIP waiting list. We send you a bunch of materials. I send you a digest of our reading list because I want you to know what you're getting into. We send you a summary of Mortimer Adler's book, How to Read a Book. Send you his essay on how to mark a book. We send you Stringfellow Barr's essay on dialectic, on how to have a discussion, how to be a good faith interlocutor, a good faith discussion partner. All kinds of stuff that even if you don't sign up with me, they're all resources that you could use to set up a group in your home. And I think everybody should do that. So go to onlinegreatbooks.com and sign up at that. Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Uncle Carl, for coming to Oklahoma and signing and doing a podcast with me. And thanks for helping all these people work through these books. We've had a lot of people do it.
Yep,
it's pretty amazing. And we'll do some more. I want to do one about reading, like the act. Maybe we'll do that next.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.